Aloha and welcome to the Aquarian Radio Network at aquarianradio.com. This is an episode of Enki Speaks. The series is called The Anunnaki and Us, 30 chapters of our history from 4.5 billion years ago to 311 BCE. I am your host, Janet Carol Lesson, here with my co-host, anthropologist Dr. Sasha Lesson. This chapter is Chapter 12, which is titled Enki, Ningishita, and Nima Made Adamite Slaves. And now is our co-host, Dr. Sasha Lesson.
Enki, Nima, and Ningishita experimented. They spliced genes of their genome into combinations with other creatures. They made centaurs, griffins, cyclops, all kinds of combinations. Enki and Ningishita serviced the Erectus women even, but this didn't get them pregnant. So Enki and Ningishita got their own seed in test tubes, and then they fertilized in those test tubes ova they got from the Erectus females, and they made zygotes. They planted the zygotes they had made in Erectus women. Well, the first babies born of the Erectus women couldn't see, or they couldn't use their hands right, or their guts didn't work. Nima thought that she could beat these defects. Next zygote, she deliberately used a vessel of copper, and instead of a test tube, she used African clay for some of the vessels. So that got into what the energy from copper and clay got into these zygotes. However, the zygote that they grew out from this experiment couldn't talk.
Then, in the clay vessel, the admixture, they made the oval of an earth female with Anunnaki male essence they put together. The fertilized egg into the womb of Nimba by Enki was inserted. There was conception. To a male child, Nimba, birth was giving. Enki, the boy child, held in his hands the image of perfection was he. He slapped the newborn on his hind parts. The newborn uttered proper sounds. He handed the newborn to Nima. "My hands have made it victoriously," she shouted. Once Nima had Adamu, the prototype for the primitive worker, she radioed the med center at Shurubak. She said she needed 7 doctors to volunteer their wombs for offspring of Adamu. His essence alone as a mold shall be. Nima and the doctors swore they'd love and support the babes they'd bear. In 7 vessels of the clay of Absu made Nima ovals, zygotes, which Ningishita's and Enki's sperm fertilized, of the 2-legged females placed. The life essences of Adamu she extracted bit by bit in the vessels it inserted. Then in the male part of Adamu, an incision she made, a drop of blood to let out. Let this a sign of life be, that flesh and soul have combined, let it forever proclaim. She squeezed the male part for blood, 1 drop in each vessel to the admixture she added. In this clay's admixture, earthling with Anunnaki shall be bound. To a unity shall the 2 essences, one of earth, one of heaven, together be brought. In the wombs of the birth-giving heroines, the fertilized ovals were inserted. Nima cut Adamu's 7 healthy boys from their wombs. To create a female, Ningishita planted a zygote made with Adamu's blood in Damkina. When the zygote grew to a viable female fetus, Nima excised her from Damkina. Nima named the hybrid Tiamat, which means mother of earth, mother of life. Excuse me. She was a sandy blonde. Ningishita put ova from Tiamat into 7 test tubes. Then he planted the 7 ova in the same doctors who had borne the hybrid males. All the surrogate mothers carried female hybrids, which he removed surgically. But when he told the doctors he needed their wombs again, Nima objected. "For my heroines, too burdensome is bearing more earthlings. Too few are the heroines to bear numbers enough to work the mines." Enki brought Adamu and Tiamat to Eden. He left the 7 female and the 8 male hybrids, which were made from Adamu's and Tiamat's gametes, together in an enclosure at his African lab. They copulated often, but the females did not conceive.
In the meantime, the miners again threatened mutiny if Enki and Ningishita didn't bring slaves to relieve them, working under the ground. Under pressure at the med center in Shurubak, Ningishita compared the Nibiran genes and the genes from Adamu and Tiamat, and he found the genes for reproduction. He discovered them. Nibiran females had a recessive XY chromosomal allele in their genotype, but Tiamat had only XX because she was made totally from the male. So to make hybrids fertile, Ningishita anesthetized Enki, Nimma, and Tiamat. From the rib of Enki, the life essence he extracted, into the rib of Adamu, he inserted Enki's life essence. From the rib of Nimma, the life essence he extracted, and into the rib of Tiamat, the life essence of Nimma he inserted, and he proudly declared, "To their tree of life, 2 branches have been added. With procreating powers, they have procreating powers, their essences are now entwined." Enki, Nimma, and Ningishita hid Tiamat's newly installed breedability. Tiamat and Adamu stayed at Enki's Persian Gulf orchard while her fetus gestated. Tiamat made leaf aprons for herself and for Adamu. When Commander Enlil saw Adamu and Tiamat wearing aprons, he made Enki explain. Enki confessed. He confessed that Tiamat's fetus would in turn breed. "The last bit of our essence to these creatures you have given," that's what Enki said, "to be like us in procreation knowing. Maybe you gave him our millions of years life cycles too." But Enki said, "Nah, we didn't do that." Enki's team had exceeded Enlil's okay to create mind slaves in test tubes. It's all he ever said they could do. And he might have even okayed the thing with the Nibiran mothers, but he did not okay breedability, and he went ahead and did that.
My Lord Enlil, Ningishita was saying, knowing for procreation they were given the branch of long living to their essence tree was not. A longevity gene, or genes known to Enki and Ningishita, was deliberately excluded from the human genome when the mixing of genes took place. "Then let them be where they are needed," Enlil with anger said. "To the Absu away from the Eden, let them be expelled." After Enlil evicted Adamu and Tiamat from Eden, Enki knew the commander would limit them. Enlil called him Snake, sliding his genetic program in without permission. Enki reacted slyly. He started the secret Brotherhood of the Snake for a few of select Earthlings whom he taught facts, technology, and advanced thinking. Enki put Adamu and Tiamat in an enclosure in Zimbabwe. She bore the twins, Cain and Abel, then others who in turn bred with each other and with Nibirans.
In a few thousand years, the Earthlings were proliferating. To be with the Anunnaki they were eager. For food rations they toiled well. Of heat and dust they did not complain. Of backbreaking they did not grumble. Of hardships the Anunnaki were relieved, Enki wrote. The Earthlings worked the African mines and submersible cargo boats that in just 10 days would bring the gold up from the mines in Africa to Badibera in Sumer, and there they'd smelt, refine, and form the gold into ingots, and then the gold would be transshipped to Mars. The vital gold to Nibiru was coming. It was coming steadily. Nibiru's atmosphere was slowly healing, and the Nibirans just shuttled to and from Earth. To Earth from Nibiru, the rockets launched ahead of Nibiru, and then they caught it after it passed Earth, going around on the other side. The shuttle rejoined the mother rocket, and the mother rocket took off and caught the rocket ship that was going back to Nibiru. And the rockets had 1.5 Earth years to catch up at that point.
Nibirans gave Earthlings food and shelter while they performed grueling tasks, the reason for which they did not understand. The stuff, the gold they were digging up, had no value to them. They could not eat it or use it in any way. The Nibiran royals and their staff and the astronauts needed the steady stream of fresh laborers for their projects. in the South Africa from Mozambique to Botswana, Zimbabwe, and beyond, where the descendants of Adamu labored for the Nibirans, the extended ancient settlement covered an area much larger than modern Johannesburg, more than 500,000 square kilometers. The Nibirans and their Adamite slaves built circles of stone. These circles were not dwellings, they lacked entrances. These stone circles capacitated sonar energy. Nibirans and their adapted worker slaves laid channels of stone that connected all the stone circles in South Africa. They set iron-rich, magnetically charged granite rocks on both sides of the channel among the stone circles. The linked, continuous stone channels spread in a never-ending web of 500 million stones over a 500-kilometer area. The channels climb hills too steep for animals or carts. The channels gave the Nibirans and their slaves the energy grid for the mining operations and life support. The Nibirans directed electromagnetic energy from the earth along the stone channels. Sound waves capacitated the energy along the channels.
Tellinger writes that the Nibiran overseers directed goods and water along these channels with a levitation device that tapped into the magnetic content of the stones, the same way that modern trains float above the electromagnetic tracks. The levitation device helped the Nibirans and their slaves lift the heavy stones, and these stones were heavier than 10 tons. They used a floating substance. It was probably the same monoatomic gold that they shipped back to Nibiru to help make the loads lighter. The stone channels connected the pits that leached gold. It connected houses, terraces, workstations, and ceremonial centers. 3 of these South African cities had 1,086 million circular stone ruins that stretched over 10,000 kilometers.
Yeah, they sent the monoatomic gold, which was for Nibiru to save its atmosphere. I just wanted to correct that.
But they also were using it to facilitate their operations right in South Africa, is what Tellinger says, that they used that also. And they were also, we found out, using it for their health, too.
Right. So the monoatomic gold was very valuable to the Anunnaki. So thank you very much for joining us today. We have several books on our websites. You can get them on Amazon.com. The books are Anunnaki Gods No More and Anunnaki Legacy of the Gods. And I have a new book called Dance of the Souls. Next time we will deal with who begat whom, when, where, and how, when, where.
The Lord made Adam, the Lord made Eve. He made them both a little bit naive until they stumbled on the apple tree. Then she looked at him, and he looked at her, and they knew immediately what the world was for. He said, "Give me my cane." He said, "Give me my hat. The time has come to begin the beget.
That's cute. And today's episode was dedicated to Emmanuel Bombardier, who crossed over this morning. He was 27 years old, and today is June 7th, 2014. Blessings and love to you, Manny, on your journey.